Hey there, welcome to That Dang Dad. My name is Phil, and tonight we're getting personal. Really personal. In a move that I may come to regret, I am going to reveal to you things about myself that I am incredibly insecure about. Things that if somebody left a mean comment about them, I would pretend were not a big deal, but would secretly obsess over for like months after the fact. And I want to be very clear about this up front. I am not doing this to fish for praise. I do not want all of you to flood my comment section with, "Oh, but you're so great, you're so cute, I just want to put you in my pocket and feed you M&Ms all day." I mean, I do want that, but please don't. The point of this video is not to validate my ego or to reassure myself that I'm smart and sexy and worthy of respect. I also want to be clear that some of these insecurities are problematic. They come from things like internalized fat phobia or ableism that run counter to the wholesome, inclusive image that I try to project on this channel. These are not noble thoughts, and I get this. So why am I doing this? Well, in short, as a human being, and particularly as a man, I think the vast majority of the rotten things that I've ever done, times that I've hurt people or myself, directly stem from these insecurities. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of us, particularly men, have that experience. So that kind of seems like something we should talk about. Unfortunately, that means getting vulnerable about the parts of ourselves that we are desperate for other people not to have access to. And that's a big ask, but somebody's got to go first, so here goes. Fuck it. I'm just going to start with the one that my eyes are laser focused on every time I release a new video. My snaggletooth. It's just one of those things where I just never wanted to deal with braces, and I keep them clean and tidy and they don't hurt anything in my day-to-day, but just being on camera makes me hyper aware of them. Same with these little patchy spots on my beard. They aren't as bad in person, but the hair there is just very blonde and the camera has a really hard time picking it up. So if I want to have a beard, it has to be thick and bushy, otherwise I feel like it looks super patchy. Some YouTubers make beards look so effortless. I have this blemish. I don't know if it's like an acne scar or something like that, but it's just another thing that I'm super aware of in every video. I usually dab a little concealer on it just to fade it a little, but I always know it's there. I am constantly insecure about my hair. I have wild cowlicks and my hair just like sits weird in the back. I feel like I have this little shelf of hair back there that just looks dumb. So I go with messy hairstyles a lot just to kind of obscure that. I'm very insecure about my chest in certain shirts. I'm always afraid that I look like I have little nipply man boobies. And look, I'm a gender arsonist. I think men with breasts are great. And I wouldn't be upset about having a femme body. But if I'm gonna go that route, I want a big buxom rack. Otherwise, I'd rather just have some tighter pecs, you know? And yeah, baby, you know I'm insecure about my soft little tum-tum. But don't worry, I'm insecure about a lot of stuff beyond my physical appearance. I am super insecure about my place in the greater ecosystem of left-wing content creators. Like, I'm friends with Labor Kyle and Zoe B and Hyphenated J, and compared to them, I just feel fucking dumb. I read books and I can't remember them very well. I'm exposed to theory and capitalism's deepest lore, and a lot of it just doesn't stick in my brain. I have to look up what dialectic means like once a month. Plus, I have friends like Kaylin Conrad and Adam Fellows doing these incredibly artistic things in their videos with cool graphics and puppets and sets, and it took me 4 years of YouTubing just to buy a ring light. The fanciest thing that I do is raid pixels for stock video footage. In my private life, I'm worried that I'm not a great dad or a great partner or a great friend. I'm grumpy a lot of the time, I'm quick to anger, I'm slow to respond to texts, I rarely initiate contact. All my favorite hobbies are solitary pursuits. I don't like going out and, doing things. And outside of all that, I'm just really insecure about my usefulness as an activist or a political entity or whatever. When I mentored with queer youth, I barely did anything but just show up. I don't talk to my neighbors, I don't do big important things in the community, I don't show up to protests. I talk a really big game on here about getting involved with mutual aid and community defense, but I very, very rarely live up to that in my own personal life. I feel like a huge fraud. I'm sure there's more that I could get into, but you can only listen to somebody rag on themselves for so long before it gets pretty boring. And oh lord, do I fear being boring for some reason. Anyway, like I said, the point of the video is not for you to reassure me that I have great hair and a great channel and a body you want to snuggle. I know a lot of that insecurity is misplaced or overblown or about stuff that doesn't matter. I know there's a lot of good things about me that I'm ignoring. I know that I've helped people and I've shown up for people and contributed positively to the world. I know. The point of this video is that I have carried insecurities like these about my body, about my interestingness, about my coolness for pretty much my entire life. And I have not always managed that insecurity in a healthy way. In fact, I have done some terrible things because they made me feel cool or interesting or sexy. For example, in college, I cheated on a partner with a mutual friend for several months. At the time, I would have told you that it was because we had this chemistry, this connection, this kind of intoxicating young love that could not be denied. And while chemistry was certainly a factor, the truth is that cheating made me feel sexy. Like I was so desirable, somebody would risk blowing up our entire friend group just to be with me. Along the same lines, multiple times I was somebody that other people cheated on their partners with, and again, it made me feel handsome and irresistible. And while I haven't violated a boundary with partners in that same way since, I have often been extremely tempted by people who seem interested in me. Times that people have really turned on the charm with me, I would find myself very captivated by that, very attracted to the feeling of being wanted. The time that really sticks in my memory is back in my cop days. There was an explorer, basically like a cadet or a police intern, who took a shine to me. She was 18 at the time, I was 29, and as a full-fledged police officer, I had a ton of authority over her. She would do ride-alongs with me and we would lightly flirt back and forth. And yeah, it made me feel handsome and interesting and cool to have this pretty young college girl interested in me while I was staring down the barrel of turning 30. And no, we did not have sex, we did not exchange lewds or anything like that. After a month of flirtatious ride-alongs, I took her out to dinner one night. And sitting across the table, I suddenly realized that she had done her hair and makeup in a different way to make herself look older. And it just hit me like, holy shit, what am I doing? I felt like the world's biggest scumbag. We had a nice dinner, I took her home and gently broke things off. But there's a universe in which I didn't do the right thing, right? Like, there is a universe uncomfortably close to this one where I soothed my insecurities at the expense of a young person on the wrong end of a power imbalance. And who knows, maybe she would never have seen it as a breach. But deep down, I wasn't in a relationship with her as an equal, and she deserved better. I think about that situation a lot when I hear about celebrities and CEOs and influencers and content creators getting caught having inappropriate relationships with subordinates and fans, or using their power to coerce sexual favors. It's tempting to see a lot of these people as power-hungry monsters who use people up with total amoral cruelty, and certainly your Jeffrey Epsteins and your Harvey Weinsteins were exactly that monstrous. But in so many other cases, I don't see a monster so much as I see an insecure little boy just like me, longing not to feel so scared or so ugly. Not too long ago, a content creator in the video game space got caught creeping on women developers and essentially trying to cajole sex in exchange for favorable reviews. And while this is obviously wrong, when I look at this guy, I see somebody who, like me, was probably a pudgy dork in school who felt unwanted and who now suddenly had an avenue to feel handsome and desirable. It doesn't make that behavior okay, but I'm just saying, I get it. And this stuff goes beyond sex, too. So many of us, men in particular, don't feel powerful. We don't feel like we're in control of our lives. Maybe we grew up broke and we never got to have the nice things that other kids had. Maybe we grew up lonely and bullied. Maybe we grew up in a sheltered rich family and then completely ate shit when we had to navigate the real world. That powerlessness can feed an insecurity that invites violent feelings. If I'm feeling powerless, violence feels like taking the power back. This can manifest as incel behavior that has all too often resulted in a mass casualty event. Or it can manifest as racism or homophobia or ableism, violence against some outgroup that can't fight back as easily. When a bunch of insecure guys get together and start egging each other on, all kinds of terrible things can happen. The best way to stop thinking about your own vulnerability is to make a target out of someone else. In fact, if we really want to get raw and real in this video, this violent insecurity is something that I catch a whiff of on the left sometimes in the debate and reaction content sphere. I'm not calling anybody out, I'm not trying to start beef, but sometimes when I see certain communities obsess over dominating opponents or destroying people with facts and logic, I sometimes detect in that desire to dominate a desire to soothe internal insecurity. Along those same lines, I know it's mostly posturing, but on Twitter and elsewhere, you will sometimes see very hardcore communist or anarchist accounts fantasizing about who gets the wall after glorious revolution, licking their lips at the thought of executing their enemies. And mostly it's Nazis getting the wall, which is fine. But occasionally you will see communists talking about executing anarchists and vice versa. You hear talk about how this or that banal thing won't be tolerated. And you can almost hear the person stroking their Kalashnikov as they say it. And it makes sense, right? The left attracts people who have traditionally been out of power, people who have been fucked over by the system, fucked over by life, left behind by friends and family, and made to feel dehumanized. Who on the left isn't carrying around a bunch of insecurity and hurt and grief? That's totally valid, and in its own weird way, I think that's what makes the left strong, is that we are, broadly speaking, a community that takes in those who have been told they don't belong. But as Art Spiegelman says, suffering doesn't make people good, it just makes them suffer. The reason that I wanted to make this video is because I know that if I am not on top of my insecurities, I am capable of great harm. And baby, so are you. And I don't know what being on top of it means for everyone. Maybe that means therapy, maybe that's church, maybe that's a guided mushroom trip, maybe it's just waking up every day and committing to do a little better. What I do know is that if you can't see it and you can't name it, you can't work on it. So I'm showing you all of mine and naming them just in case we share some of the same ones. I think one of the most insidious aspects of insecurity is that it doesn't want to be perceived. Because if you know what I'm insecure about, you know how to really hurt me. You know what will get under my skin. So to be open about my insecurities is to hand you a massive amount of power over me. And yet, maybe in a funny, emotional judo kind of way, being open about your insecurities actually lessens their power. Think about it. Statistically, some dillweed is going to find this video and make fun of my snaggletooth or tell me that I'll never be as smart as John the Duncan. But like, no shit. I was the one who told you I was worried about it. By being open and honest about my insecurities, it gives me a new toolkit that isn't violence or anger or retargeting someone else. Makes it easier to laugh it off or shrug and say, you got me. And perhaps most importantly, it allows me to connect with other people that are dealing with those same anxieties. And by making these connections of shared vulnerability, we can actually have a nice productive think about how we want to move forward with it. If I'm insecure about my figure, I can examine my internalized fat phobia or come up with a plan for eating and joyful movement that lets me be happier with what I see in the mirror. If I'm insecure about my intelligence, I can figure out my talents and sweet spot instead of comparing myself to others. Or I can swap strategies with people I respect on how to retain what I read better or how to make the most of my study time. There's so many tips and tricks and strategies that we all privately carry around for our own little challenges. Being open about our insecurities enables us to share those, to help others and to help ourselves. And even if there's no solutions to be found for our specific issues, being open and vulnerable allows us to carry each other's burdens, to encourage each other, and to be more empathetic and inclusive. It's a win-win-win, baby! Anyway, your turn. What are you insecure about? What do you hope people never perceive about you? What makes your anger flare up when it gets called out? Let us know in the comments if you dare. Oh, and it goes without saying, if I see people being shitty down there, they're gonna get vaporized. Thank you so much for joining me on this TMI journey. I hope you got something out of it. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed yourself, and please share this with somebody that you think might could use it. As for me, I must return to the astral plane to recharge my powers. Thanks again for your time. Hope to see you on the next one. Have a good night.